Welcome to Premier League Match Pack, your weekly guide to all of the stats that matter. 120 games have been played, with Sunderland moving off the bottom of the table for the first time in almost 2 months. The 3 goals they scored in the last round has taken the tally to 330 this season, and Chelsea's Diego Costa individually leads the way with 10. 63 of the goals scored have been headers, with Mikel Antonio the undisputed king with 6. While at the other end there have been 59 clean sheets this season, could we see that number rise again with another 10 games ahead?
Things are certainly looking up for Chelsea. Antonio Conte has the Blues top of the league after a complete round of matches for the first time since they were crowned champions in 2015. Since losing to Arsenal at the end of September, Chelsea have won all 6 games without conceding a single goal. That impressive run has coincided with Conte switching to a 3-man defence, a change which has also seen the back line sit deeper, winning the ball back closer to their own goal on average. There have been improvements all over the pitch since the Italian got a grip on the team.
There have been some big differences in Chelsea's performances as well as their attitude this season. I think the attitude bit is the most important bit. The form of the front 3 guys has really helped them to be able to be a threat going forward, to be able to get in those pockets of space and to make sure that the opposition are not quite sure which way they're going to attack them, but the most important thing is making sure defensively they're solid.
Chelsea's form at Stamford Bridge has also caught the eye. This season they've claimed more wins and scored more goals on home soil than any other side, while also conceding the fewest in front of their own fans. That's a sturdy foundation for a successful year.
Chelsea's home form is fundamental to them being able to challenge for the title this season. That's going to happen by making sure that everybody knows their job. And when you see Conte on the sidelines, you know for sure that he's motivating everybody, that on the training pitch they've been drilled.
Tottenham Hotspur will arrive at Stamford Bridge with Harry Kane finding form. The England international hit the net twice in the win over West Ham United last time out, giving him the best goals per game ratio in London derbies of any player that's featured in at least 10 of them. Tottenham have been moving the ball forward quickly when they attack this season, and the figures highlight their productiveness when they have possession. Only West Bromwich Albion are averaging fewer touches per shot than Mauricio Pochettino's side. Chelsea must be wary of Spurs, especially on the counter-attack.
Their signature has been how quickly can they get the ball from defence to attack, therefore leaving the opposition not being able to get set and make it more difficult for them to score goals. So if they continue with this style of football, then I think Tottenham, as they have been doing for a long time, will keep the opposition thinking and always be on a positive move.
One man who's really coming into his own now for Chelsea is Pedro. Earlier in the campaign, the Spaniard was in and out of a team, but he started the last 5 league games. The former Barcelona man's been used in a different role this season, generally operating on the right flank, and has 2 goals and 5 assists to his name. Another player who's altered his game is Tottenham's Victor Wanyama. The Kenyan midfielder signed from Southampton in the summer and is being used in more of an attacking role under Pochettino, in the opposition half more regularly and creating more chances per game than ever before.
Wanyama's not known for his dealing with the ball, but actually he's much better than people give him credit for. He's able to get on the ball, and whilst not playing 30 or 40-yard sprayed passes, he knows just to keep possession and give it to someone who may be more talented on the ball. And that's where Wanyama's strength comes in, because he knows exactly what he does well, and he does it very well.
When Wanyama and co line up against Chelsea, they'll have to ignore a poor record against their London rivals. In Premier League games, the Blues have claimed more victories and scored more goals against Spurs than any other side. Their most recent meeting won't be fondly remembered by Pochettino, who saw his team let a 2-0 half-time lead slip in a huge match at the end of last season. That draw ended Tottenham's hopes of a first Premier League title and handed the crown to Leicester City, a result likely to haunt them for many years to come.
Tottenham will remember quite well the game against Chelsea last season, and they won't want to make the same mistakes. Now, physically, they definitely took Chelsea on. I think they'll do that again. I think that's the Pochettino way. It is a grudge game, it is a derby, but I think Tottenham will go into it wanting to be a little bit more settled and a little bit calmer with all of the noise and the publicity surrounding this game.
Our match pack question this week is all about that London derby, as we're asking which player has scored the most goals in the games between Chelsea and Tottenham Hotspur. We'll have the answer for you later in the show.
Liverpool's run of 3 consecutive wins came to an end when they were held by Southampton last weekend. They'll be desperate to return to the top of the table after being leapfrogged by Chelsea. But they host a rejuvenated Sunderland side who've won back-to-back matches and kept their first clean sheet since May in the victory over Hull. David Moyes' side will have to find a way to cope with Jurgen Klopp's high-pressing style of play. Almost a third of Liverpool's tackles have been in the opponent's half, more than any other team. And the Reds' high-energy approach means they've also covered the most ground this season.
It's hard to contain Liverpool at the moment, isn't it? The only positive thing that if you were going to play against them, they do seem to concede goals at the back. But attacking-wise, Liverpool have been great to watch. Mane, Coutinho, Lallana. They're exciting, they're quick, they seem to be linking really well together, and at the moment they seem to be destroying teams.
As results are finally picking up for Sunderland, Moyes will be keen to improve his personal record against Liverpool. In his time with Everton and Manchester United, he recorded just 3 wins over the Reds, and none of those victories were at Anfield. So not too promising for the Black Cats, who themselves have never come out on top in a trip to Liverpool in the Premier League. Despite all that and Sunderland's recent struggles, they did take a share of the points the last time these sides met. Jermaine Defoe's 89th minute equaliser kick-started their escape from relegation.
Southampton's goalless draw with Liverpool last weekend arguably summed up their season so far. Claude Puel's side will be keen to improve in the final third after failing to register a shot on target, but the Saints' organisation makes them a very difficult team to beat. That resolute backline has consistently proved its worth over the last few months. Since the start of 2016, only Tottenham Hotspur fared better in terms of goals conceded per game. Goalkeeper Fraser Forster, fullbacks Cedric Suarez and Ryan Bertrand, either side of the formidable pairing of Jose Font and Virgil van Dijk, have all contributed to the cause. The 2 centre-backs in particular have shone this term, and while both can play with the ball at their feet, their primary focus is their defensive duties. Van Dijk has given the team more presence and pace at the back, and Font has flourished alongside him.
His performances with Van Dijk's been excellent, so with them 2 centre-halves, they're off to a sort of good sound base, if you like, and then they work from there. Full-backs are decent, but when you look at the centre-halves, that's the position where I think, in my opinion, Southampton are at the strongest.
For the second weekend in a row, the visitors to St Mary's travel from Merseyside. Everton, led by former Saints boss Ronald Koeman, make the trip to the south coast in need of a result. They began the season so positively with 4 wins from their first 5 games, but have recorded just 1 victory since then. Against Swansea last time out, their cause wasn't helped by Phil Jagielka's clumsy challenge on Gylfi Sigurdsson in the area. That's the 3rd penalty given against Everton this season, with Jagielka responsible for all 3. He's now conceded more penalties than any other player in the division this term.
He's still a very, very good defender, but he's getting himself now into positions where, if he's a little bit smarter and he's played alongside, Ashley Williams, these 2 players need to be a little bit more compact, and what that should do, if you're an experienced player, you should drag your fullbacks nice and narrow, so then you're hard to beat. So maybe the fullbacks need to be a little bit wiser and recognise that he's not in great form, and just go back to basics, Everton, and try and keep clean sheets.
Another player with plenty to offer, but whose consistency might be a concern, is Ross Barkley. On his day, he can be devastating, but statistics show his influence on games is significantly reduced when playing away from home. On average, he creates fewer chances and shoots less often, which might explain why he's yet to score on the road this season.
You look through the Everton team, there's some very, very good players in there, but they're just not clicking and not playing to the highest level. So consistency's there, key. Ronald Koeman's still learning about his group of players. If they can, get Balassi flying, if they can get Deulofeu flying, if they can get Ross Barkley into the game a lot more and get Lukaku scoring goals, there's 4 players that can turn any game for Everton.
But Barkley, Lukaku and co certainly did perform in the corresponding fixture last season. In a game for which many would have made Southampton favourites, Everton stunned the Saints into silence, recording a comprehensive 3-0 victory. Despite that recent memory of success on the south coast, This hasn't been a happy hunting ground for the men from Merseyside down the years. Their only previous win at St Mary's was their first ever trip, way back in April 2002. It's a fixture the Saints have tended to enjoy, but Everton will be hoping that having a man who's won 58% of his games managed at this stadium can improve that record. It's sure to be an interesting dynamic as Koeman takes his seat in the away dugout for the first time since he made his Southampton departure.
I'm not surprised Ronald Koeman made the move. I actually thought he might have bided his time a little bit more and waited for an Arsenal or a Barcelona, but credit Everton, Mr Mashiri and Bill Kenwright for getting them because it's a fantastic signing. They're going to have to play well, Everton, but going back to a former club, it happens. I don't think it's anything new anymore. Lots of players do it. I don't think he'll get a good reception, but I don't think it'll faze him.
Etienne Capoue now holds Watford's record for their fastest ever Premier League goal. But when it comes to assists, his teammate Troy Deeney is out in front. In the spells Watford have spent in the Premier League, he set up 9 goals, the most for the club. In the win over Leicester City last time out, he and the rest of the Watford team certainly put in a much improved performance from their previous game when they were trounced at the hands of Liverpool, their only defeat in their last 6 outings. Now Badr Matsari's team are looking to make it 3 home wins in a row, something the club's never achieved before in the Premier League. If they're to do that, they'll have to get the better of Stoke City at Vicarage Road. Mark Hughes' side stumbled last weekend, losing to Bournemouth. And it was an all-too-familiar story for Stoke, as for the 5th time this season they conceded from a free kick, the most of all 20 teams in the top flight. No joy at the other end either as the Potters drew a blank. That was the first time in 8 Premier League matches that they'd failed to score. Much to the frustration of their manager, that defeat ended Stoke's 6-game unbeaten run. And Hughes will no doubt demand his players regroup ahead of what could be a tricky away trip. Of the 6 games they've played on their travels this season, Stoke have taken maximum points only once.
Burnley must be glad to be back at Turf Moor this weekend after their 4-0 defeat to West Bromwich Albion. The Clarets boast the 4th best home record in the league. They face a Manchester City side who've won just 2 of their last 6 games, with both of those victories coming away from home. As expected with a Pep Guardiola side, City have enjoyed retaining more of the ball than any other team this season. They'll expect to dominate play in this fixture as their opponents have on average the joint lowest possession with 37%, along with West Brom and Sunderland.
I think Man City are a great side to watch and Guardiola really seems to be getting his points across. Games they play, they dominate possession, teams sit off them and try and be hard to break down, but City certainly have the players within the squad to do that, the likes of Silva, De Bruyne, Aguero, the list goes on, and I think at the end of the season City are going to be there or thereabouts challenging for the title.
One Burnley player that has kept up with Manchester City's creativity is Steven Defour. Aside from his Belgian international teammate Kevin De Bruyne, Defour has provided more assists than any Manchester City midfielder, despite missing 3 games. The 2 sides have only faced each other twice at Turf Moor, and last time Burnley came out on top thanks to a goal from George Boyd. It was quite the opposite in April 2010 as City won 6-1. Half of their goals came in the first 7 minutes, equalling the Premier League record for the earliest 3-goal deficit.
No sign of Hull City's season getting any easier after a comprehensive defeat at the hands of Sunderland. Mike Phelan's side haven't managed to keep a clean sheet since their victory over Swansea City in August and currently have a goal difference of -17. Looking back at previous years won't improve the mood. Of the 7 clubs which had an equal or worse goal difference at this stage of the season, only 1 was able to stay up come May. On the face of it, opponents West Bromwich Albion have to be firm favourites to take the points this weekend, though that won't change their preparations.
Gaffer doesn't believe in adapting too much to your opponent. I think it's more important to focus on your own game. Then, of course, yeah, you tend to do little things depending on the opponent at the weekend, but not too much. And I don't think that's going to be something that we're gonna stress too much about.
Hull's cause won't be helped by recent injuries. Abel Hernandez is sidelined for a month, and fellow forward Will Keane has been ruled out for the rest of the season. It's a lack of attacking options the Tigers could really do without, as their strikers are struggling for goals. Adama Diamonde and Hernandez have just one apiece. Only West Ham's forwards have scored fewer this season. Not that West Brom will be allowed to take anything for granted against their depleted opponents.
You know there's quality, and you know you need to be on your toes all the time, and then also playing away from home. It's always tough to come away with a clean sheet. So you know, we're going to approach that game defensively as we always do.
The Baggies are fresh from their biggest win of the season over Burnley, but Tony Pulis may still be keen to reintroduce his side's joint top scorer Nasser Chadli. On top of 2 assists, the Belgian has netted 4 goals so far. One of those strikes came at Sunderland, contributing to the Baggies' impressive record away from home. Only the teams in the current top 6 have collected more points on the road than West Brom. Off the back of their unusually dominant display in the Midlands on Monday, Pulis and his side may relish another away day. Often they find their best form when they head off from the Hawthorns on their travels.
We tend to play with quite a low defence away from home and play on the counter-attack, and that's, I think, an approach that suits us. Obviously, when you're playing at home, you need to go and dictate the game a little bit more, and that's where we've been struggling the last few years, I think.
For Albion to pick up another 3 points on the road, they will have to deal with Hull's threat from set pieces. They're second only to West Ham United for the proportion of goals they've scored from dead ball situations so far. But it's a trend that'll be tough for the Tigers to maintain this weekend. West Brom are third on the list for the lowest percentage of goals conceded from set plays, behind Manchester City and Bournemouth. This is clearly a Tony Pulis team that's well drilled on the training ground, one of the hallmarks of their head coach.
Some teams take it too lightly and take, you defend your man, and when you're attacking, you run into this area, that area, and I think it can be a little bit more more sophisticated in the approach to that, and I think we possess that.
If Hull can find a way through that resolute Baggies backline, meetings with the Tigers. Despite that, with the sides separated by 6 points and 9 places, Pulis and his team will be tipped to come out on top.
Bournemouth travelled to the Emirates Stadium with confidence following their 1-0 win away to Stoke. They sit in 10th position, 7 points better off than at this stage last season. Meanwhile, Arsenal will be looking to revive their title hopes after 2 tough games against Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United, which has seen them drop to 4th. If they are going to really challenge for the title, Arsene Wenger's side will need to find their finishing touch. Despite being the league's 4th top scorers, they have the lowest shooting accuracy out of the top 7 teams. They particularly struggled at the Emirates, managing just 26 shots on target at home. They'll be up against Bournemouth's Simon Francis. He's one of only 5 outfield players in the league to play in every game since the beginning of last season. The defender has been with the club since their League One days and has made the joint most recoveries of Bournemouth's outfield players.
The fact that he can play as a centre-half or as a full-back is a massive weapon in his armoury. He's a good player, he's strong, he leads by example, he makes tackles, and he really looks to put his team on the front foot with his intense attacking play when he gets chances to go forward. So you can see why he's played all these games, because he's a good professional, he looks after himself off the pitch, and Bournemouth are certainly benefiting from his good form.
The 2 sides met at the Emirates Stadium for the first time last season. Gabriel scored his first Premier League goal before Mesut Ozil helped the home side move to the top of the table. It was a double celebration for Petr Cech as he claimed his 170th clean sheet, breaking the Premier League record.
Much like the rest of his Leicester City side, this Premier League season hasn't lived up to expectations for Riyad Mahrez. His consolation goal in the defeat to Watford was just his second of the campaign, and he's only provided one assist. A stark contrast to 12 months ago, when the Algerian had been directly involved in 13 goals for the Foxes. The latest loss was the champions' 6th of the season, twice the number they suffered in the whole of the last campaign. Leicester are continuing to make great strides in Europe, and manager Claudio Ranieri needs them to start matching that domestically. Currently they're 14th and just 2 points above the relegation zone. This weekend they face another side lacking consistency. Since their summer promotion back to the Premier League, Middlesbrough have found the net a mere 10 times, the joint lowest tally in the division. And Borough head coach Aitor Karanka has been forced to defend the performance of their main hope up front, Alvaro Negredo. The striker's not scored in his last 11 outings. That's certainly contributed to the club's results. Middlesbrough have picked up just 6 points from a possible 27 in their last 9 Premier League games. And there's not been much to cheer in their trips on the road. The team's only victory away from the Riverside came back on the second weekend of the season against their nearest club, Sunderland.
Earlier in the programme, we asked which player had scored the most Premier League goals in matches between Chelsea and Tottenham Hotspur. The answer, it's the former Chelsea striker Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, who scored 10 times in their Premier League meetings, including a hat-trick at Stamford Bridge in March 2002.
Frustrated by a draw against Arsenal last weekend, Manchester United are still struggling to find their rhythm under Jose Mourinho. Opponents West Ham United were left even more dissatisfied against Tottenham, throwing away a 2-1 lead with minutes remaining. They'll be without the suspended Winston Reid, who picked up their 7th red card since the beginning of last season. One of West Ham's problems has been a lack of first-half goals to settle them down. Only 4 of their 13 have come in the opening 45 minutes. A problem for Slaven Bilic, whose side had netted 7 more first-half goals at this stage 12 months ago.
They hit such heights last year, the expectation levels are certainly there now, and the pressure really is on them to go out and not just win games, but to win games in a certain style. And for West Ham to be successful, they need to start games faster, they need to be on the front foot, and certainly scoring goals in the first half is a massive part of doing that and winning games and being successful in the Premier League.
2 men to watch are former Hammer Michael Carrick and Mark Noble. Since the beginning of last season, Manchester United's win percentage is 12% higher when Carrick started, while Noble's played the most passes for West Ham and put in the joint highest number of tackles. In the Premier League, West Ham have always struggled at Manchester United, winning just twice at Old Trafford. Back in September 2014, it was an afternoon to remember for Robin van Persie, as he scored his 50th United goal in all competitions, as they secured their 7th consecutive home win over the Hammers.
Not even a penalty from Gylfi Sigurdsson could save Swansea City from slipping to the bottom of the table following a draw with Everton. His opener from the spot means he's been involved in over half of the Swans' 11 goals since the start of the season. That form has seen him retain his position in Bob Bradley's changing lineup. But with Swansea's winless streak now extending to 11 games, it's clear their American manager needs to find a winning formula, and fast. Their only victory of the campaign came on the opening day of the season. While at the Liberty Stadium, Swansea picked up just 2 points from a possible 18. This weekend, they face a side who are the only team below them in the form table. But amidst the sorrow at Selhurst Park, Wilfried Zaha is striving to be a glimmer of hope. So far this season, he's provided 5 assists for his Crystal Palace teammates, more than he managed in his past 3 campaigns combined. But with just 0.71 points per game in the calendar year of 2016, the problems persist at Palace. Following their 5th straight league defeat, they remain 1 point above the relegation zone. Alan Pardew will be keen to stop the rot, especially in defence, as they've now gone 17 Premier League games without keeping a clean sheet.
This weekend kicks off with Burnley hosting Manchester City at Turf Moor, while Sunderland will look to make it 3 wins in a row as they head to Liverpool. 4 fixtures on Sunday. Arsenal take on Bournemouth, while Ronald Koeman heads back to St Mary's for the first time as his Everton team play Southampton. But it's all eyes on Stamford Bridge for Saturday's late kick-off, where Tottenham look to end their terrible record. In the previous 24 Premier League seasons, 13 Spurs managers have tried and failed to take 3 points at Chelsea. That's the most consecutive games that any team in the division's gone without winning on a specific rival's ground. It's surely high time for this season's only unbeaten side to buck the trend as they try to topple the league leaders. Until next week, from Dave Farrer, me, Dave Beckett, and the rest of the Match Pack team, goodbye.